Welcome everyone and Boomer Sooner. It is Wednesday, September 25th, 2024, and I'm joined tonight by Gavin, as well as potentially Swiggy and Sean if they make their way in tonight. They might be running a little bit late. Gavin, how you doing, buddy? How you doing tonight? How are you post Tennessee? Have you been able to take some time to just go outside, take a breather, and just enjoy the fresh air, knowing no matter what beat goes on, gotta focus on this week.
Well, I've enjoyed quite a bit of the fresh air, although having the storms popping up and everything yesterday did not really vibe with me that well, quite honestly.
Yeah, yeah.
After all of the craziness and everything that was kind of going on with like some of the storms that was going on a little bit. I mean, it's
You
like it's
said
good to have it's still good to have the rain, but it's not good when you almost have like you're seeing like a UFO sort of supercell look from basically going across the plains at this point.
as someone who was part of the not directly impacted by it, but was in literally the backyard of the giant, costly hailstorm yesterday that tore through northwest to southeast Oklahoma City. I get you. I feel you. For those of you tuning in who don't know, yesterday evening, Oklahoma City got hit pretty hard by a massive, massive hailstorm and did anywhere bare minimum ish from, they say, overall $600 million. And that can increase. It can get substantially more expensive from it. They said $300 million, alone could have been from roofs. So everyone's trying to file claims as fast as they can. We got people also trying to get their cars fixed as fast as they can. Like they said already, the body shops are just full. I'm like, man, it'd almost be worth it if you can somehow or another take your car out of town at this point, maybe to Lawton or Wichita Falls, or more if you have a windshield for it, and just get it fixed that way. But yeah, yesterday listening to the news, you could hear the hail at KOCO just hammering, and you could. I feel bad for Damon Lane and everybody because they just know their cars were trashed.
Oh
They
man.
were just totaled, and it was just, we're all in this together, guys. Like, I'm not the only one. I'm like, man, that sucks. And then of course you have the west side of the county and Yukon and Mustang that were like, we got nothing. We saw it. I saw it, but the rest of us got nothing from that one. But
And
yeah, it was a pretty intense hailstorm. I mean, it was up there with, I think it was last year, or the year before that, Austin's hailstorm that cost like $600 million to property damage and everything. I had a acquaintance who said he walked outside and geese were scattered all over the neighborhood that were knocked out of the sky from the hailstorm. Which, I mean, you don't think about that, but that does make sense of these type of intense storms
yeah,
from that.
yeah, and the other thing too, and people will not realize this, but it's like even though everybody associates, with like the severe storm weather, usually within like March to May or June, usually this is kind of considered the secondary season. Usually, for Oklahoma, we'll have like a lot of the smaller, tamer storms, but then sometimes you'll get something that will flare up just real quickly too. So it can still happen for the most part.
Correct, correct. It's not as severe as our April to June tornado and thunderstorm season, but we do get the occasional one. It is weird that we got it this late September versus usually around May this time. But I mean, like you said, though, this is kind of our mini thunderstorm season, but we're not out of the woods yet. We still got a couple more weeks before we're really more into autumn at this point. Speaking of thunderstorms that are impacting the metro and Sooners across, messed that up, but that's okay. From Metro, hurricane officially going up through the Gulf of Mexico and expected to start impacting Florida as early as tomorrow. Early tracks right now show it looks like projections may have exceeded expectations. They initially predicted it to be a category 3, and now it looks like it's going to potentially be low range on the cusp or more well secured Category 4 for it. So right now, Florida, Georgia, and everybody in the surrounding areas are like hunkering down as best as they can. This thing's going to be rapidly intensifying. I think the last we saw with the National Weather Service that it is likely to become a major hurricane. They're expecting upwards to 20 feet of storm surge. Like wild. That is just a crazy amount of storm surge. And it's probably going to be a tropical depression, tropical storm, depending on how much it gains strength tonight, all the way up to like 200, 300 miles inland. This thing is going to be a monster. I think they last checked it out, measuring it about an hour ago. It's 800 miles long, like from one storm band to the other. That's wild. Like that is bonkers. Now, how does that impact the Auburn game right now? Supposedly right now the current track has Auburn included with like the tropical storms and the rain at this point, but the more severe components of the storm are going to be more eastward towards Georgia. Timeline still on track that OU is supposedly going to go play at Auburn on Saturday. It's too late to move the game at this point to Norman if that was a possibility. I think they should have out of precautionary measures, but I think based on the situation with Tulane last year, for it, logistics, the ability of like getting the field ready to go, concessions, limited skeleton crew, like basically all the components with it just probably weren't there. And we're just going to have to ride it out. And the reason I say they probably should have moved it to Auburn is probably because I'm looking at it as a more broader impact, not necessarily the impact itself from the hurricane, the more major damage, but I'm thinking it's supposed to be in the Auburnish area, like 7 a.m. Friday, but you're going to be dealing with lots of inches of rain, which doesn't impact the players, except our players because we don't have a run game. But it's going to impact that area. But it's also too like this is all dependent on if they have electricity and everything. Like I feel like there's fans getting to the game, players getting to the game. Now I could be overblowing it and I could be exaggerating it myself, and it just doesn't turn out to be a big deal. But that all said, I think they're not thinking about this as much as through it all. But who knows? Like I said, it could be a non-factor. It's just you deal with the rain, it is what it is, and it just becomes a slip and slide. Or it's going to be a major one, and if you have to cancel the game, where does it go to on the schedule? Because our bye weeks don't line up. Does Auburn cancel a game because they know realistically they're not going to make it to the SEC championship, and they just cancel a no-nothing opponent like Louisiana Monroe? I think they haven't played yet. Or do we move it to the end of the season, like during championship week, because OU realistically will also not be in the SEC championship as well? Do we put them there at that point and just play it in December after LSU? I don't know. Like I said, right now, all signs point to that this game is going to be played, unless, to me, it's going to have to be a major Category 4 high end one before they start reconsidering stuff. If it's a Category 5, I fully expect them to change stuff. But for now, that's where we're standing at the moment. It's still, but the sad part is the hurricane track right now is going to go through like Big Bend area, which was just impacted like last year from some of the major hurricanes, and going through the Tallahassee area. Though, to be fair, with it going through the Tallahassee area, it may be the longest the football remains in the air at that point for their season.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where we're kind of at with the hurricane. Again, OU and Auburn emergency management and administration are probably are continuing to monitor it, but all speed ahead at this point. I knew there was some rumblings very early on this week that they may have decided to move the game to Norman or rearrange it, but that time has passed at this point. So again, it doesn't matter on our end. But yeah, that's what. Speaking of weather like that, this has been such a wild, crazy week of news, Gavin. Like even for this live stream, with how much to discuss and everything it has been going on.
Oh man,
From
yeah, it's
weather
been
to
a lot
sports
going
news
on.
to everything.
It's
Go
like
ahead.
everything's just kind of like gone crazy and everything, and I'm like, what reality have I been at this point? And where is basically the Tartarus? Because I feel like I need to go to a different dimension at this point.
I need to like have everything just chill. But I mean, horrible for uh everybody, like Hurricane and everything, but great for live stream, great for topics to talk about. I guess where do we even start with it? We got a game this week. Brent Venables went full scorched earth on basically the entire offensive staff during his presser this week. Brent Venables
Which
pretty
he
much said,
should. I mean,
yeah,
he should, honestly. I mean, you got 4 games and everything, and this
you have
offense
nothing
and
to show for
everything
it.
has nothing to show for it. I mean, you've really been putting yourself into point, and I'm even going to go back to even saying going back to the bowl game. Like you have been basically going with the somewhat dealing with the lax of the games and stuff, and that's like, look, I understand. Offensive line was not going to be good. We all knew that going in, but the problem that I had was there is just we're just don't not just dealing with the whole issue with talent or anything, but I am just not seeing the fight, if anything. It's like they're
Yeah,
somehow basically looking into it very scared. And I have really, kind of some mixed opinions and everything that's going on to this. And I'm not usually the one that usually likes to harp on quarterbacks or anything, but this is the only exception I'm going to make. It's like for Jackson Arnold and everything, and there's a little bit. It's like I'm blaming him because a lot of the decision making that he has going on too, because his decision making has been horrible throughout his reads and all that. But there's also, and this is the other part of me that I kind of been getting into this, is that he also, I think the problem is he's trying to do everything all in one big swoop and carrying the whole deal on his shoulders. And the problem is when you're trying to overdo it and do too much, you're basically ending up hurting yourself and basically the team around you in the process. Now, here's the thing: am I defending Arnold? No, but I'm just saying from that perspective more than anything. I think if anything that he's basically putting too much and everything instead of making the simple reads and letting the team do the work instead of him trying to carry it all himself.
I think it's also worth mentioning that it's what you said about Jackson Arnold kind of like going through the motions. I think he's doing too much hero ball. And to me, that's a combination of what we discussed on the last live stream, the Venn diagram essentially being one big circle. I think that contributed to it. I understand that going back to the bowl game and stuff, but then again, in the bowl game, he looks so much better with it, even as uh inexperienced freshman making his first true start for OU. Even then, like the regression is kind of incredible. Where it is from
Ah,
against Arizona to now. Now, what the
I,
entire irony of this is I mean that what we discussed last live stream of how do you fix it? Well, it's already being fixed because Michael Hawkins is going to start this Saturday for Auburn. And I think it's for the foreseeable future. It's going to be Michael Hawkins.
yeah, and honestly, like I'm just kind of baffled of anything because like Hawkins, it's like once Hawkins got into the field, man, it was just like everything just somehow changed all of a sudden, and it's like, wait, we can actually block and pass the football. I mean, it was like all of a sudden it was just like the light switch just went off, and it was just like somehow it almost became like a cohesive unit.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
just it's just weird. It's like and this is just going to be something, and it's going to kind of bring back some memories a little bit and all that. But I have never had this much vibe and everything since going back because it's like when you had Spencer Rattler starting the season, and then you had to bench him for Caleb. This is almost the pure
Yeah,
irony of all
you're not
this.
wrong.
It's just like I mean, like, I don't know why, but it's like you basically have the whole issue within all that. I've never seen the issue to where we've had that consistent quarterback staying in for the most part. Now, and I'm just going to say, and I'm just saying this out, and I'm just saying this out. And like, look, college quarterbacks will usually get 2 or 3 years or so, but the last couple of seasons, and I'm kind of going back to around 2020 to 2021. and I'm just saying this for the time frame. I mean, heck, I'm going back to 2018. We've had maybe what, like 6 to 7 to maybe close to 8 or 9 starting quarterbacks that have usually started. And I'm kind of going back because, you're looking back, after Baker Mayfield, who started 3 years. You had Kyler for a year. You had Jalen for a year. You even had Spencer Rattler for about a year and a half. And then Caleb took over. And then both of them bolted out. Then you had Dylan Gabriel for 2 seasons. And then now you get to basically Jackson Arnold. And look, I know college is only a short term game. But the problem is, it's like we have just kind of been somewhat on this crazy quarterback carousel to where there's just, we have not that one guy that was able to basically stay there and stick it for a long term and like kind of go like to maybe like, for the like a 3-year starter or so. I have not seen that, since the Baker era.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Gavin, because I actually have the stat up. Over the last 50 years, okay? So this goes to the 80s, okay?
Okay.
I know the 80s were just 10 years ago, but no, it's the 80s. OU has started these true freshmen over the past 50 years. So tell me if any of these names sound kind of familiar. Caleb Williams, obviously. Troy Aikman.
Yep.
Jamel Hallway, and now
Mhm.
Michael Hawkins. Like, this is going to be a big stage for him this weekend to be able to be among those elite quarterbacks and make a true impression and try to turn this offense around at this point. I think Michael Hawkins' decision making and his ability to run east and west is much more tailored to what this offense's current capabilities are. And I think that's why you have to go with him. You have to kind of go with the guy of, again, even if his ceiling is lower than Jackson Arnold, if Jackson Arnold's just not getting it and Michael Hawkins is, you got to go with him.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's like I think honestly he's got much more of a better hot hand right now, within the quarterback room at this point. And it's going to be you're going to be basically be put in a tough test because you are not just starting, your first ever game, but you're starting it on the road against Auburn, and I've had this talk, before the season even start. Starting at Auburn is almost like here's the thing. Auburn is kind of like not crazy from a fan perspective, but just playing there just has a lot of weird vibes that have usually gone on there over the years. It's like weird things usually have happened usually over at Auburn.
Yeah, but keep in mind too that Auburn is trash this year.
Well,
Like
yes, of course.
we may be the dumpster fire that's hanging on for dear life at the moment because at the end of the day we are still 3-1. It's just 0-1 in the conference, but we are a little bit of the dumpster fire on offense going down the street. Living in the great neighborhood that is where our defense is at. Auburn, on the other hand, is struggling on both sides of the ball, and even with the spooky vibes that Jordan O'Hare gives off, yeah, like I don't think they have the capabilities to be able to do that. But again,
Well,
this is a sinker's. Well, go ahead.
no, I agree with you. Yeah, but and it's like they can be the worst thing of the problem. But here's the thing: SEC play, they're always going to come in every single week, and I've always had issues. It's like it's like each game is always going to be a 0-0 in the SEC, and you're going to be tested on a game out. And honestly, here's the thing: we're only like what from last I checked, I think it was like what a 2.5 point favorite against Auburn, which I think was kind of probably been like the lowest favorite I've seen in a while.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be very hard because it's like if experts are saying that this is going to be a 50-50 matchup with the way things are going, and plus you're starting with Hawkins. I mean, I love how he played, but it's like I said, road games and especially SEC road games are going to be no joke. For the rest of the season, it's going to be definitely be something that's going to have to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's a turning point right now for Oklahoma. This is it's our gut check. It's what I said many months ago and on other videos. OU is capable of winning roughly-ish 90% of their games this season. And the question was going to be, who are we going to lose to? Because it's what I said. OU struggles to make it through October undefeated. And who was going to be that loss? Was it going to be Ole Miss? Was there going to be a no? Was it going to be Texas? Was it going to be a team we just weren't expecting? I'm not going to say we weren't expecting Tennessee because that team was beatable on it, but we did not expect the offense to throw up on themselves like they did for it. But right now, OU is really in a sink or swim moment at this point. Your offense has not been horrible, even though we've found or the offense is dreadfully horrible, even though we have found ways to win. And you kind of had to reset with Michael Hawkins. If you can right the ship this weekend, I think that's some promise for the rest of the season to potentially still go maybe 8-4 on the regular season, maybe 7-5. That's still above the Vegas expectations if you go 8-4. If not, I don't know if I'm at this particular point yet, but you do have to wonder, is there going to be a new play caller for Red River rivalry? Because after that, you have 2 weeks to get ready for Texas. Me personally, again, anything can happen for that game, but I'm also realistic of it's not going to be blowout. But until the offense gives me confidence, I can't favor OU against that in that game against Texas at the moment. But they are still in this sink and swim kind of moment. I just don't know to what extent, if we base it on everything, I don't know to what extent Hawkins will be able to fix the offense, but maybe it gets back on track at this point. And I think that's kind of where it starts, is because, again, there's nothing to talk about on the defensive side because the defense is doing exactly what it's supposed to. Sure, they get burned at times. Sure, they sometimes give up the big pass, but I'd rather them give up the big pass than giving up the running yards, which they shut down Tennessee's offense by and large for the most part, outside of some key plays, in addition to the momentum swings and everything.
Yeah. And here's the other thing too, and of course this just came out just over an hour ago. We were able to kind of look at with the report and everything that just came out very recently. Of course, Nick Anderson, he's actually going to be out, and of all people, Tyler Kettler, our kicker, is somehow out.
He got spaghetti knee.
I mean, like,
he got
how do you lose our kicker to an injury? I want to really know. Did he hyperextend or
he kicked a burrito?
Okay.
He kicked a burrito. That's what happened. Well, if you ask Tennessee fans, it was the field, but maybe, but I'm not convinced of it being the field. For it might be. Who knows, Gavin?
He's
out.
Then of course,
he is out.
And then, of course, and then people that are in question, you have Tatum, that's doubtful as well. And of course,
bet, I'm assuming, and feel free to tell me I'm wrong, Gavin. My guess is he got really banged up on Saturday, and it's for precautionary, because I haven't heard anything since Saturday what is wrong with him. To me, that means he might be in concussion protocol and it's just going through the motions at this point. But I don't know. Like, don't ask me on it because I genuinely don't know. It's only speculation, but it only lines up of, if it's nothing else, it has to be a concussion protocol thing.
Then again, they got out physical and everything, and they were throwing them down to the turf. So there's some issues there. And then, of course, you have Deion Burks, who had, I guess, like, it was a soft tissue injury that they were saying or something like that when I was listening to the broadcast and everything. He's also questionable and everything. But the only plus side is that Jake Taylor on the offensive line, he's probable and will probably might get a chance to start, but not 100% sure on that too. But it's like, anything I can help with that offensive line, it's like, I would be fine, with like Jake Taylor, just to kind of have an extra body of support for the most part, because we've already got a lot of injuries and we just need all the help we can get at this point.
Correct. I mean, overall, we're looking at, with the injury report, obviously, I think it's time to throw in the towel, Gavin, that Nick Anderson is probably out for the season. I think he's just dealing that injury. I think is just an injury that bugs you and it just ebbs and flows. After Saturday, with him being essentially body slammed or dogpiled on,
Yeah.
I just don't see him realistically rehabbed at this point to
I
be
would.
on the field.
I kind of am in the same boat with you here, and I think the biggest thing, and this is going to be my take, if anything, because we're coming up to that. We're already at that 4 game mark and everything, to where you can have that red shirt, non-red shirt at this point of the year, where we haven't really got to that point yet. I mean, honestly, I would maybe consider the red shirt, if that's still an option.
I would. I would, or a
I mean,
medical red shirt.
yeah, just have like a medical red shirt for the rest of the year, and that way, if you can just be able to rehab, for the rest of the season,
Yeah,
that's kind of where I look at it at this point. It's like, look, if you want to be able to kind of get to that point to where you can have some of these guys for a medical red shirt or a red shirt for a year, because we're still at that point to where it doesn't hurt to just have them out for the year. It's not that they're not good, but with the way the injury bug has been really plagued this team,
yeah,
I mean, here's the thing: we know that this year was not going to be the year for us to get to the playoff or anything. It was just like, we have a good talent and all that for the most part, but it's just not really well worth it, if you want to be able to move forward. That's going to be
yeah,
the biggest part.
yeah.
I'm not usually the one throwing the towel. Trust me, I am not like that at all. But you have to make, consider the health benefits, for the most part, because
We can't
honestly,
sim the next season, Gavin.
I know you can't. It's like, do you really want them to have like their entire careers blown? Basically hoppling down to one leg at this point, or some bad knee issues or something like that. It's like, does the sitting out help the health benefits out in the future? That's a bit always been the biggest problem right there.
Yeah, and that also extends as well to like Angelo Anthony's still on the list, and I think at this point he hasn't played a game since OU Texas last year. We're in the 5th game of the
Yeah,
season. I would medical redshirt again and try again next year. For it. It's
exactly.
I think he's just having a difficult rehab, or he's having more injuries that set him back, and I think it's just time to have that reset and get into next year. If he does next year, I would assume if he medical redshirts, next year is going to be the possibility, because otherwise he's not going to have any NFL tape. You got to have a season to bounce back at that point. And I think that would be the case just to get fully healed up at this point, which is a
Yeah,
bummer because, it's wild that our wide receiver unit was the strongest unit and it was bragged about. And now it's like we're throwing Jacoby Johnson at wide receiver because we just need people. But then again, that's karma, Gavin, because we joked about Texas doing that with their running backs. And lo and behold, look what we have to do with our wide receivers at the moment.
yeah. So, yeah, that's going to be the biggest part for the season too. So, and it was like, I was talking about this with like with like one of my colleagues. It's like, you know it's just like, no, it's just going to be the hardest part, is going to be just like, we know we can probably win a few games here and there, but we know that this is going to be the toughest season to deal with. And honestly think that if we can get, be able to win. Here's the thing: I'm not expecting to, have like a huge blowout or anything like that. But if you can be able to win like by 3 possessions or so, I would feel
I
a
would
little
say
bit
two
more.
possessions.
Well, 2 to 3 possessions. You know, it'll give you some good confidence going into the bye, and basically, look, Texas is probably going to be the team that's everybody's going to be kind of going over for the most part. It's like, I really have no answers. That's kind of looking forward to the rest of the season, because like Texas right now has been unbeatable right now. Bama's just been looking pretty good, and which it's with Monroe. it's just like there's just been no, stopping at this point. And
Yeah.
Missouri, it's like crazy thing. Here's the thing. I think Missouri's still pretty beatable. I think they're just a little bit too much overranked at this point. Because
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say this: you have had some issues with Boston College. You've now had some issues with Vanderbilt, which
Yeah.
those games were you should have been able to handle your business, and you almost got the fiddler, paid his due. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, and I never like to do comparisons, but it kind of gives me that weird vibe of like, okay, you're gonna be, it's like back in 21 where we were, paying that fiddler too much, and it cost us, at the end of November. But
Yeah.
what I digress is that Missouri's going to somehow lose a game somewhere, down the road, and I think it'll somehow be before us. I really do, because I just
I
cannot
agree.
see a way to where they will be able to keep getting away with it. Now, do I think they're probably one of the best teams? Not necessarily. I think they can have a potential of maybe getting into the playoff as either a road team or with an at-large bid, but I just have a hard time seeing them being one of the best teams in the country at this
I
point.
don't disagree with you. The rest of the injury report, by the way, that was released. I think I'm not sure if you mentioned him or I completely missed it. Was Dasan McCullough is still out. You mentioned
Yes.
Leon Burks and Jake Taylor, and then obviously Jaden Gibson and Farouk are out for the rest of the season. Here's one that I think may also as well, like where are we at? Gentry. I wonder what's been going on with him as well. If his uh what stuff is like nagging and everything as well, to the point of is he going to take a medical red shirt and everything?
Yeah, I think if anything, and I can't remember if there was issues, but like there was like I don't know if this was something that I can remember, but it's like I don't know if he had like has had like any medical issues or anything like that that's really happened before. That's kind of nagging on him either. It's been one of those things to where Gentry, is a really good corner, but I've also been concerned because it's like him staying healthy has been a consistent issue, on and
Yeah.
off for quite some
Him
time.
and Nick Anderson both, it's like wrap them in bubble wrap or something. Like
Yeah,
they just get injured a bunch.
and that's kind of been the biggest problem right now. It's like they can, play a few snaps, but then it's like the problem is it's like once you kind of keep going, it's like they get fatigued and get brittled way too easily.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm already kind of getting to the point to where I'm looking at myself and I'm like, what the heck are we? I mean, it's not just even bubble wrap. I would put them in a bubble ball at this case. That's kind of
Well,
where I'm at. Put them in the bubble ball and let them just run down the field and just roll over the receivers and corners is all I care.
they're gonna be bubble boys.
Yeah,
Bubble
bring out
boys.
the bubble boys at this point. That's where I'm
I
at.
don't I don't disagree with you. Um and finally, obviously, Kendall Dolby. I'm betting he's out the rest of the season. I think they said he was out the rest of the season.
No, I mean, look, here's the thing. If you were at the game, just hope that you didn't get to see it on the screen because they showed it on a national wide audience and it
I,
was so
I,
bad to watch. And I'm like, yeah, ABC, you should have not shown that because it was so bad to where, yeah,
I,
he's gonna
I
have
was
surgery
obviously
and be out for the season. It was so bad.
I was at the game, but obviously it happened on my side of the field, but I didn't see the injury and stuff. I just knew through Twitter, like pretty much, oh, he broke his leg, kind of like he's out the rest of the season at this point. My assumption with it has always been and Gavin, with you being in media, you can obviously correct me. My assumption has always been, if you get injured in the play, obviously there's not a whole lot you can do. Like if you're televising it and you get like one replay of it just to see what happened, and that's it. Usually it's like everybody gets one. I'm not sure what they did on the national telecast for it. But
They
obviously
basically showed. Yeah, they basically showed the sky cam of the of what happened with the injury and everything, and it was just like to where his leg went one way and his ankle just basically went another. Just it was just ugly to watch. It wasn't like a Joe Theismann worst injury or anything, but it was kind of right up there at that point.
It made everyone cringe, essentially. Which,
yeah,
I mean, I'll say this as well for it.
I mean, I understand you have to show it, just to get people context. I get it, but it's like there's at times because the problem is it's like even though they show the cart and everything, they gave no discretion or no warning, before letting the audience know at home. That was sort of my whole thing more than anything. I mean, look, that's just kind of my take of anything. It's like, look, and I'm just saying this because, like, with me being in media and everything, it's like I'm fine. Look, I'm okay with showing it, but it's like you have to give a viewer discretion. That's the biggest thing. Because if not, then you're going to be getting a lot of people getting into weird and bad reactions that are going to basically get into a lot of trouble. That's the whole issue right there. That's just me, but that is like something that you have to do because it's like when something's that sensitive or basically life or career altering, you have to have discretion, for that too. And it's like, I know it's a lot of common sense, but it's like you got to have a little bit more of a decency component to let people know what just happened and just saying that, we're going to warn you, this is going to be pretty gruesome. So if you're squeamish, look away or something like that. Just something generic. You don't have to make a big deal.
I will say something I will add from the game, and I may have forgot to mention it in the last live stream for it, but unlike, and I know it doesn't describe the entire fan base, but that was a bad moment for the Tennessee fan base. For the people who attended that game, they were booing when Dolby got injured because they thought he was faking it. And then lo and behold, when the cart went onto the field, did that tune change really fast? So it's like, guys, I understand we can all be passionate. I know we don't like faking. I know Kirk got really upset with, I think it was Terry. Looked like he was faking injuries, but it's like,
Terry,
dude, you have to assume every injury is a serious injury because if not, you look like an ass when that happens. And boy, did they look like asses.
And that is another great, and that's another area too, because it's like Kirk has been very anti, anti-injuries, like where, tempo is starting to speed up and everything. And then all of a sudden when a player goes down automatically, there's been a lot of issues with that. And I understand, and I'm not agreeing with Kirk on all of this, but there's like, I see a little bit of his point. But the problem is that when you start pushing at like where you're doing plays like close to like 5, 6, 7 seconds, per snap and everything, and then you are starting to seize and cramp up or causing issues, it's going to take quite a bit of toll on your body too. And I kind of get to the point of like, it's like, yeah, there is some gamesmanship there a little bit within it too. I understand. But the problem is, it's like not every, injury like that, there might be a small cramp here or there or something like that. But then you get something that's pretty serious, too, that could be issuing within a muscle or having some heart issues or something along those lines as well.
The issue is,
it does take a
there's no
huge
way to prove
effect
it. That's
of
the
your
problem.
body.
The problem is there's no way to prove
And that is always
that's the
exactly
issue is whether they, and it could be just like a Michael Hawkins, for example, when he did the flip, it looked like the air got knocked out of him. He got some whiplash. Like, there's just no way to prove the extent of an injury. Are there sometimes, obviously, when players flop? Sure. Like, that's part of it. That's part of the game. I mean, until they have more enforceable rules with it, for not punishing players, but like, hey, if you're out, then you need to be out the rest of the series at this point. For it, then yeah, then we'll probably see the end of like some of that flopping at this point. But to get us back on track for like the Auburn game, in addition to that, so we went through the rest of the injuries. Obviously, the rest of the report would be Kendall Dolby, like we said, is out probably the rest of the year. And then Hatchet is also listed out on Saturday, and I don't think that's changed since last week as well. So that's kind of the big surprising one is Troy Everett is still is not listed, so maybe he's good to go on Saturday at this point. They're not wanting to throw him to the wolves like they did wanted to do potentially against Tennessee. For me with Auburn, it's a tricky case because, okay, let's say the hurricane goes through and we're dealing with a wet field. Well, advantageously, yeah, or we're dealing with the rain. You want to run the ball. Well, we kind of struggle at the moment with that. So that's a knock against us. However, our defense being so lights out and Auburn, both sides of the ball being such a cluster, I don't know how effective Auburn is going to be, even with it being a home game, even with Michael Hawkins being a true freshman starting on the road. That defense is so suffocating. I just don't see what Auburn is going to be able to do on the offensive side of the ball. And as good as we say OU's offense is bad, Auburn's offense is also bad. Flip side of it, OU's with the turnovers, spectacular on defensive side of the ball. Auburn, they're the other direction where it's like they are horrible at turning the ball over. And I think that's what's going to, again, defense is going to dictate the pace and outcome of this game. And I think the turnovers are going to be a factor at this point. I just, outside of what team chaos for it, and it might even be a little bit closer than what we want because we are on the road at this point. I just don't see. And well, outside of obviously the offense not scoring a single point and the defense not finding a way to get into the end zone, I just don't see how Auburn stacks up essentially.
I mean, the problem is like Auburn, for the most part, they just have not been. They've just kind of been down to the point and everything. Plus, dealing with the coaching staff that's kind of somewhat fresh and new and everything, getting with Hugh Freeze and everything. It's just been a
Hugh Freeze is also, speaking of that, really fast, Gavin. Not to interrupt you, but Hugh Freeze, like he's on like what the hot seat at this point. He may make it to the end of the season, then he's toast, which shouldn't be surprised. And I'm like, they shouldn't have hired him in the first place. Like that, that's their own fault. That's their own internal issues that they needed to figure out. But good job, Auburn.
Yeah, you honestly, they kind of freeze themselves out of their money and their pocketbook at this point because that's all they did. That's all that Hugh Freeze just basically did. And they just went like, hey, you know what? Whatever happened to that guy over at Ole Miss, and he did really well. Maybe we could try something here. And I'm like, oh. And after all the scandals and investigations and stuff like that too, it's like. You really basically went ahead and bought into all the baggage that came along with it too. So
yeah.
And the problem is, it's like Auburn. Okay, aside from like I mean, they had a few small years and everything, but they just have never been at that point to where they have been good for the most part. It's been such an up and down program. Right now, they're still down for the most part. And it's hard for me to just justify and say that, with Auburn, that they're in the right direction. They are nowhere near where they should be at for the most part. I mean, they get out dominated, especially in the line of scrimmage. I mean, they had, and I'm not kidding you, lost to Cal, which is kind of crazy for me to think, and the saying of all this, to an ACC team. So words I'll never get. I've never thought I will hear out of my mouth again.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of at the point to where it's like I have a hard time wanting to find a way to say, "Oh, this is an easy win." It's not, but it's like it is just a lot favorable to where I feel about 75% confident of winning this game.
Yeah, and I could definitely lean towards that direction as well because, like, Auburn is bad, but I mean, I'm also too, like, I personally cannot. Okay, maybe I can for this game. I go back and forth, but I can't favor OU in any games until we see a turnaround on the offense. But the thing is, even with OU and Auburn struggles, they still have their defense that can shut them down really fast at this point. They're just in a tailspin. Auburn's just not. They're not trending in the right direction. I think. I mean, what I think I saw that Auburn is 132 in turnovers, like giving the ball away. They're bad, and OU is number
Yeah.
1 in the nation for it. Like, it's going to be a mismatch on those points. Like, sure, Auburn has some guys. Don't get me wrong, but one guy is not changing an entire unit at this point. It's hard to figure out, like, for it, because OU should win this game. Just make the play calling simpler, make the reads much simpler, give the O-line a little bit of breathing room, maybe opens up the run game where they're not going to, because we know what Auburn's going to do, because it's going to be what every team does. Until OU figures out the passing situation, they're going to load the box up with 8 guys and pretty much say, we dare you to throw the ball. If we can open that up, it gives us more options on the ground to run our guys at this point. Now, my question, that's another one, is Barnes or Sawchuk going to start? I would assume Barnes for it because of how much Sawchuk has been struggling, but who knows?
I would go with Barnes, honestly, because like Barnes kind of was able to kind of let loose, towards the end of the fourth. And honestly, you would probably need to let Barnes be able to get a little bit more touches because he has that a little bit more of a quicker step than with Sawchuk. Because the problem is Sawchuk's trying to wait too much to just try and see something develop and then burst, which that usually isn't the case. You need to have somebody that can have to go pretty much quick step on a dime. And he
Yeah,
doesn't usually do that. He's trying to let the lineman develop, but the problem is there's no line to develop.
correct. Um, I think the overall summary from this is taking away the injuries and kind of the overall storyline going into this, that Auburn's not very good. They have a hurricane coming in. Can Oklahoma establish the run game, simplify the play calling to make the O-line effective, to give a confidence boost to our new quarterback at this point? I think that's the biggest storyline going in. If OU is able to accomplish all 3 of those things, they should be able to take care of business and win at least by 14. If OU has an offense, they are better than this. Like, I think it's 3 points. They're better than the spread. If they don't, then then there's some problems going into this, and that's going to be a locker room demoralization at that point going into Texas. Again, we'll figure this out as we go face Auburn on Saturday. Gavin, considering Auburn, was there something else we haven't covered? Because again, it's all been about the offense. Defense is fine. Defense
Yeah,
is taking care of business. There's nothing I can say bad about the defense for that. Just
I,
watch out for their passing game and don't get burned in the secondary.
I think it'll be
I feel
interesting
like I'm
because
rambling.
no, I know you. I know we're kind of rambling. We're kind of rambling at this point, but I am going to be wanting to keep an eye on who our cheetah player is going to be going forward. Because that's going to be the biggest problem. Is because I think with with Dolby being out, and I think McCullough, if I'm not mistaken, has been going through, kind of been going questionable too. That's going to be the one position that I want to be able to keep an eye on, especially is like if we're going to have somebody in that cheetah position that will kind of help fill that void a little bit. because now you're kind of questioning into that position in general because, Dolby, Nicola's having issues. That's going to be the one position you're going to have to look out for.
Yeah. Again, that's kind of my thoughts on the OU Auburn game going into it. Again, the key is, will we be able to get the offense back on track? What will Michael Hawkins be able to turn this ship around for the better, or are we still going to be struggling going into the rest of the season? Lots of questions surrounding the offense, and we'll see what happens this weekend. Speaking of dumpster fires, and I wanted to bring this up, and it's local journalist drama, Gavin, but my gosh, how embarrassing was Sam Humphries yesterday on Twitter?
Oh.
Like, my dude, you got to let it go. For those of y'all who don't know the drama for it, first off, I understand it's drama, but it makes the Oklahoma media look bad. Sam Humphries, son of Craig Humphries, did not believe in the press conference that Brent Venables said that Dillon Gabriel pretty much made up his mind that he was going to go to the NFL and that the program was going to move forward with Jackson Arnold and that he was going to take the year to basically help assist Jackson and get him ready for that position. However, those plans changed when Dillon got a horrible NFL draft grade back. So as a result, he wanted to stay in college and wanted to go back closer to home. There is video on this saying that from him himself, from the Scoop guys, that, yeah, this is what we wanted to do, or that's what he wanted to do. We have Brent Venables saying it, but then you got Sam Humphries like hours, and I'm talking hours, guys. Like, he's tweeting through the anger and through the motion saying that basically they're liars at this point. Going as far as like OU pushed Dillon Gabriel out. They pretty much told him that this was his last season in Oklahoma. It's like, bro, touch grass, let it go. I say this because it's embarrassing for the Oklahoma media to get into stats like that. It's like, someone please go take Sam's phone away. Like, it makes you look bad, my dude.
I mean, look, it was like it was a lot of issues that go on though, and everything else though too. It's like he really just needs to be able to settle down and realize, one, this is not your area to basically want to vent and basically get into fights with everyone though too. I mean, look, going even before, after the regular season was over last season, we all kind of had this, the issues of expectations of, yeah, Jackson, was going to probably be our guy, and it just didn't turn out the way. I mean, look, sometimes, and I will say this, sometimes the cookie just doesn't, the cookie's going to crumble on us, to whether we like it or not, and it just happens the fact that we crumble on it. Now, the problem is, I don't think Sam, doesn't need to be issuing the beef and everything with Dillon Gabriel and everything. Brent had his piece out and everything. And honestly, it was more of basically a best interest and everything else though too. With after Levy leaving and all that sort of stuff as well, it was just in the best interest for everybody, and where they needed to go. That's just part of it. It's just part of the business that goes on into these issues. And if you just somehow can't accept that and basically kind of go into this fan rage, anger, tweeting warfare, you are basically going to create the problems, and it's going to make, all of us looking the state look really bad.
I would go as far to say he's trying to be a Skip Bayless, but he's not good at it. But
no.
It looks bad because then on the flip side, you got Gabe also fighting with Chris Hammonds on why he was wearing a Tennessee shirt on the sidelines, when it turns out like Chris Ward, because he made a promise to Heupel's mom before she passed away this year that he would support Heupel in this game. And it's like, bros, like, y'all don't know the full stories. Like, there is a difference of sitting by the water cooler and talking drama, essentially, and like gossiping. Don't air this on Twitter. Don't air this stuff, because if it is like as bad as it looks, for it, like if it turns out it's not in your favor, it's gonna make us look bad. And I mean, Gabe made us look bad in my opinion. So did Sam Humphrey. So it's like, my dude, stick to what it is. Stick to the game. don't get into the water cooler drama. Don't get into the office gossip for it. But yeah, that I can't believe like it for Sam Humphries. Y'all don't understand. Like this was like a 12 to 14 hour like just him tweeting through the anger and through the emotions. Like I don't know what it was. Just someone needed to take his phone away at this point. So
maybe we could just padlock it and just basically put it into some place to where he might never use it ever again. Hopefully,
that'd be great. He wants, like I said, he wants to be a shock jock and journalist, and that's just not. That's not good journalism in general. If that's
no,
what it
it's
is.
not.
So,
I mean, the problem is there. It's one thing to want to try and get a rise and getting into the issues and everything, and then it's just basically wanting to try and argue and trying to basically be an arrogant ass. That and that's the problem is he's basically being this arrogant ass and just wanting to just try and be able to get clicks and tweets and stuff like that and everything to where he's going to be able to be able to stick to the point. And if you're only sticking to one point that's like within 14 to 15 hours, dude, you really need to be able to get your priorities straight because honestly there is a lot
yeah,
more things that are going on than just what's going on in this game. And honestly there's a
it
lot
makes
of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that we don't know about, and honestly that's for the players and the coaches to come out on their own terms, not something that you need to be able to cause and stir and create drama within the whole Twitter sphere.
it makes him look like a loser.
It really
It
does.
does. Like I've had my stuff. I'll be a smart ass and I'll respond, and I know I'm being a smart ass, but it makes him look like a loser. And yeah, it makes him lose the credibility.
But you
Um,
want to know what made? But you want to know who I think is probably the biggest loser of them all this week?
oh, that dude, my dude, that is multiple choice at this point. Are we going to be talking about the 30 for 30 that is inevitable, Gavin, with the uh, UNLV drama? Are we going to be talking about Reggie Bush wanting back pay? Are we going to be talking about the Pirates and how they cut the player before his bonus? Like, there's a lot of multiple choice, and it's the real answer is it's all of the above. But
Ding, ding, ding! You are correct.
which one?
Oh, I want to start with UNLV.
My gosh, what if we? I'm going to back up just one moment, Gavin. If we, what
Okay.
I mentioned about dumpster fires and what Sam Humphries was doing, this is just the next level of what is going on. And as an outsider looking in, I'm like, wow, this is really shitty for the standard of where we're at with NIL, but this is great for business and great for entertainment. Like, I cannot believe what is happening between UNLV and their quarterback. But give us the Gavin, give us the full story on this, because this started yesterday, and it feels like literally we get one side and then we get the other side, then we get one side, then we get the other side. It's like they're
Yeah.
literally like arguing siblings at this point. But give us the breakdown, Gavin. Give us the
Okay.
Oklahoma breakdown of what the hell is happening.
Okay. So
As I got to get my
basically,
charger.
all right. So basically, for those that have not been able to, see all this and everything, we've had the quarterback that was over at UNLV. He's been starting for a couple weeks and everything, and has led the team to being 3-0. And then all of a sudden, with the whole issue with like NIL, it's I kind of also have issues with NIL because it's like almost like being the same terms with like having the term contracts and everything. But it was basically the part to where it was like they were somehow basically arguing over. Well, wait a minute. This is not what I signed up for. You guys said it was going to be much amount of dollars, and it was just this whole issue that was going on between back and forth between both of these schools going on. I mean, and this is kind of where I look at it, was like if you were talking about wanting to basically fighting for like either some weird contract extension or some guaranteed money or anything, that's basically what we were witnessing all of this. And this was like usually something that is going on in season. Usually you would have stuff that would be like before the season or preseason games or something like that. I was not expect this if you were coming up around September. And both sides were making statements and everything. And then, of course, they were talking about getting a representative and all that. And then the quarterback's like, fine, you know what? If you're not going to pay me that much, I'm just going to sell it the rest of the year. Good luck. See ya. Bye.
Which, depending on there have been so many headlines that have been released over the past 24 hours. You have UNLV saying we recruited him, and yeah, he has a very small NIL package. I think I read either $3,000 in total or $3,000 a month through through the season at this point.
Yes.
And then we have from the other side of it, we have that quarterback saying, I was promised $100,000. They did not. It basically comes down to, did the school lie to the quarterback and say that and make unfulfilled promises? Or did the quarterback basically pull I see my market value raised because UNLV has a true legitimate chance to make it in as a G5 or G6. I'm sorry, it's G6 now.
G6. But
here's the playoff, and even if we don't win the first game, I want to have a renegotiation on my contract. And then you get all the little details of for example, you have all the little details of, well, it was a verbal. Well, actually, Gavin, I'm going to give you a great analogy before we go further. Gavin,
okay,
they didn't even have an agreement with it. Nothing was written down. They had the concept of a NIL agreement.
which you got to be able to have somewhat of a structure and everything. And if you don't have a structure, yeah, this is what's going to really happen. And I think what's ironic, this is Vegas of all places, which is I kind of find so ironic.
I cracked the joke, Gavin, that they do have the money. They just need to win it back at the casino because, that next time could be the one where they make it big.
Yeah, it's like
quit, Gavin.
Yeah, because it's like you basically want some money and everything, and it's like, okay, let's go bigger. Sorry, you're busted. You're out in the streets. Go, you're not going to be able winning your money back. It's all in the house.
Yeah, but then you take a look at the headlines with it, Gavin, where the school said all the financial commitments for the quarterback were completely met, and that the family hired this agent to increase his market value. Which, first off, I'm going to say, because I have many thoughts on it, as y'all can tell, I just kind of had a brain fart.
Yeah.
To me, I'm going to take my opinion, then I'll go into the article with it. My opinion on that first is my dude, you've only played 3 games, and I understand you beat Kansas. I understand other schools are poaching you, but my dude, you've only played 3 games. Let's wait to renegotiate until at least halfway through the season. At least start there. But here's the funny part, Gavin, is this loser of a quarterback, it's well, okay, if he's that spectacular, obviously he's got to be at least not Heisman running, but he would do great at a Kansas State, a Utah or something. Bro has a 44% accuracy rating for his throwing. It's bro, you are not that market value. Nowhere even close. You have elite legs. I think I saw he has 205 or 208 rushing yards for a quarterback, which is great. But it's no, if you're 44%, you're a loser on passing. Let's taper down. And I even thought with UNLV, it was when he wants his market value, it's we just don't have the money for it. We gave you what we have, and that would be a valid thing. But then it's my dude.
I mean, honestly, do you expect, a G6 to have that much money and everything to be able to pay out in that sort of issue? That's kind of where I was raising my eyebrows because it's I don't think they might have that much, where they would pay over that much, honestly. I mean, yeah, you would maybe get a nice little small stuff here and there probably, but not the certain amount that he was wanting to go through. I mean, it's The problem is, it's like you hit the jackpot once, and it's like you're trying to hit for another jackpot. It doesn't work like that.
And I forgot if you mentioned it, Gavin, because I was getting my charger. It wasn't even a contract; it was a verbal agreement. Like,
and
it's
that
not
is
even a thing. And you know what they say about verbal agreements? It's not worth the paper it's written on. They don't exist.
No, it's
Gentlemen
not.
handshakes are not enforceable.
No, it's not. And the problem is that even if they basically decide to go ahead and sue UNLV, UNLV is probably going to be winning it because there was nothing to be written or signed for him to be a part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're basically trying to fight a battle which you've already lost before it even started.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to my situation. Go back to the situation where I mentioned it a little over a month ago when Gundy made the stupid comments that NIL is shut down. Let's just focus on football. And I agree. Okay. I agree with the comment, but it was a stupid ass comment to make because if he's just completely closing that door, as we mentioned back then, you're losing out on a bargaining chip. And it's like, you're going to have this happen. You're going to have players that have breakout seasons that finally step up and say, you know what? I'm worth a little bit more than what my NIL package currently is at. And if you don't pay up, they're just going to sit. They're going to redshirt, or they're going to look at it and say, I have 1 year of eligibility left. I haven't taken a redshirt season. I could probably up my value, and they sit. And then you're SOL. And that's, unfortunately, there's nothing. What it comes down to as well is we are doing everything in our power as college football people to not just name the players employees, make them employees, get collective bargaining. This solves so much of that for it. But because we don't have it, we're in this situation where a player could realistically do that. We have this situation where we have people making empty promises that cannot be fulfilled. It's just wild that people are trying to justify this situation, that this is a better format than just collective bargaining and signing contracts with the players. This is the type of stuff, my opinion, that doesn't make college football fun, and it's made me start to dislike it. Now, if I wasn't a fan already before, I would question of how much time and effort do I want to devote into paying attention to a sport that's basically pay to play at the moment. And don't get me wrong, I know it exists before, but not to this extent. I had people tell me today on a forum that they are surprised any of this happened. And I said, really? Are you really surprised this happened, guys, that this is how NIL turned out to be? Because you're right. I will be honest. A lot of y'all thought of this is when we all said this is you're reaping what you're sowing. This is what was going to happen when you paid the players for it. And you're right. The majority was like, pay the players. Get this. They did not see the consequence. And you know what? Many of them said, you know what? You're right. We didn't think it was going to turn into that. We thought it was just going to be, I want to sign autographs. I want to appear in NCAA football. I just want to do some commercials. And that's not what it turned into. It stopped being that 5 minutes into it. And now it's like they're having buyer's remorse. Well, guys, you should have thought through this before NIL, the floodgates opened at this point. Now, this is on NCAA too, that they were not prepped for this for 100 years essentially and drag their feet on it. And we're all suffering as a result of it. But
and
I
yeah,
digress.
and the problem is like, even, and it's like you said, the floodgates have been open for in that sort of issue. And the other point that I want to be able to bring this out too is that, other than the issues with that, the problem is like right now it's just basically a wild west right now because there's no salary cap or anything like that that goes on or anything. It's like whoever has the deep pockets is definitely going to be able to kind of get where you can, to basically where you can be able to get to the issues with recruiting and stuff like that as well. So it's like if you don't have those deep pockets that are going to be able to help you get the players that you need, then it's going to basically hurt you in the long run for sure. And right now,
Yeah.
there's just really no structure or anything because there's no salary cap that they do, like for the NBA, the NFL, ML. Well,
And
MLB
the people
doesn't
who say
really.
it's not enforceable, like, yes, it is, guys. Like, there is a
Yeah,
system for that can be in place to make it fair for everybody. Because you have to feel bad for UNLV. Like, this is the first success they've had in years, and this is where it's at. But then again, it's not my joke. I do not claim it to be my joke. I did laugh of, man, all of UNLV's fans would be so upset if they had any fans. They'd be
yeah, and
outraged.
then basically, yeah. But but then again, that's just been the whole issue with the MLB. But sticking out west for the most part, we basically had the issues to where Reggie Bush is basically suing for wanting to have the whole back payment for his name, image, and likeness. And over the years, with the whole issue with like the Pac-12, and I'm like, Reggie, you are basically having the biggest issues for the most part, and you are basically suing this and everything when they basically did a lot of stuff paying under the bus and everything too. And the problem is, it's like it was during that precedent because it's like you're wanting to try and basically get more money for something, to where they were trying to pay you illegally to do all of this stuff. I'm kind of like, look, I mean, look, I have no issues with his talent or anything, but you are basically wanting to go into this whole issue to where, you're wanting to be able to do back pay for something like that when it wasn't even enforced until like 2020.
Ironically,
It's like
Gavin,
you can't be able.
he got paid. That's the thing, because he got a house from it. Like, we can talk all day
Yeah,
about the agent and was it against NIL stuff. He got a house. Like, he did get paid, my dude. Like, what it comes down to is, I had
yeah,
this thought was, what happens when this shit like this happens? First off, I don't legitimately think that he has a case. I think they're going to say this is beyond the statute of limitations. Like, my dude, you're hitting 20 years on this. You've been in the NFL, you've gotten your money's worth. It's not going to go, because I also think it's going to create a precedent that if you do this for one, you're doing this for 90 plus years. You're getting into the concussion level payouts that the NFL is probably going to have. It has been the settlement. You're getting to that point. That said, I also don't believe that the NCAA doesn't have enough incompetence to avoid that. Now, that all being said, circling back around to Reggie Bush and why Reggie Bush is a loser, I said, when players do this, this means they're out of money. Like, this is him
yeah,
probably trying to get some money back because he probably spent it all gambling it away or buying expensive cars or anything like this point. I wonder if they have his bunk ready in the Heisman house if he needs to go rent a room or something, if he's out of money.
yeah.
Like,
It's pretty much where
he's
it's
so
at
full of
this
shit,
point.
Gavin. He's so full of shit.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's just so dumb. It's so dumb. It's why I was just like, I hate the entire NIL situation just in general for it. But it's funny too, because it's just suing the university that made you famous in the first place, and it's just wild to me. Like, yeah, yeah. Discovery would be fun and
Yeah,
just shows like
it's
how much
just
money did
buffalo.
he
Yeah.
get under the table, essentially. Like, how many McDonald's, oh, I'm sorry, In-N-Out bags did he get? I was about to say McDonald's, but they have In-N-Out
Yeah.
in California. So,
Yeah.
like, it's funny where this is kind of the swing of everybody give his Heisman back, and now everyone's kind of going, oh yeah, now I remember why I hated this guy, because he's an asshole and he's the epitome of USC cockiness and ego stroking. Yeah, that's about right. That's about right.
Yep. Yep.
Speaking of that though, Gavin, so Reggie Bush, loser, whatever the hot mess that UNLV, the he said, she said, do they have receipts? Is the school being cheap? Is the quarterback mid-season wanting a raise? We haven't even addressed the non-football thing of why people refuse to be Pirates fans because of the shenanigans that are happening with the Pirates. So, Gavin, I'll let you explain that one as well.
I mean, I really don't know what else to explain, honestly, because I haven't really kept up with the Pirates at all this season.
Well, it made national news because, for those of you who don't know, the Pirates baseball team has a player right now that has 4 more at bats that he needs, and he gets a $200,000 bonus. You know what they did? They cut him.
They pulled him.
So they don't have to pay the bonus. And this is not the case of someone who he's a terrible player. He's not a contributor where it's like he did something like egregious for us. Nope. He was just 4 PA shy of his zero factor, like basically his bonus. And they're like, yeah, we're just going to cut you. And it's like, bros, this is why players will take less money to go to the Pirates because they don't want to deal with that. The Pirates organization shit just in general. And I'm not a baseball person, even I know the Pirates shit organization is shit. That's why they don't have fans because the players don't want to play because they know how shady it is. And it's like, bro, just pay him his money. You're telling me baseball out of all the sports doesn't have the money? It's like saying NASCAR doesn't have the money. Like, my dudes, pay him his money. Like, quit being cheapskates. Like, it's bad. It's if I was him, I would definitely be lawyering up billable hours. When again, Gavin, and try to sue for wrongful termination just to get $200,000. Speaking of that, by the way, real fast to go back to the UNLV thing, you know what the entire irony is? Supposedly with the he said, she said, you just remind me of it. From all this, the person who promised supposedly the deal to the quarterback, they don't have a license to even work in Nevada. So that little kickback they were probably getting back, supposedly at minimum, is like $60,000 fine. Like, my gosh.
Yeah. Wow. So, that yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah. In the sense for the baseball and everything for it, I think if your organization is pulling those stunts with it, they should be forced to sell the team. And it's basically play stupid games, win stupid rewards, and I think they should do that. And I want to say, and I feel like I read this in an article that was talking about. I want to say a player has done that before, and they sued and they won. Like, you can't do something like that. Like, that's not how it works for it. But who knows what his contract says and everything as well. But it's like, why would I want to invest my time and effort on a loser organization? So
yeah.
So yeah, when you say it's all of the above, it is definitely all of the above with these organizations and everything at this point. But yeah, it's been a busy news week, Gavin, from Brent Venables spitting fire at his press conference and basically telling the entire staff, like, I predict that from that press conference, if stuff doesn't turn around. Like, first, if they lose, I feel like we're at the domino effect. If they lose, somebody's got to fall on the sword. I don't know who it is. Someone got to fall on that sword.
It's going to be Seth and John, honestly. I think it's going to be Seth.
I think it'd be Joe John first because Joe John is definitely a contributor to it. But then let's say they go 4-8. Oh goodness, then Brent's gonna be pissed off because he's on that hot seat at this point too. I think as stuff progresses, it's a how hot are all of the offensive coaches seats, or which select individuals want to line up for tribute to be kicked off the team. Like I said, I think it's very much a Joe John Finley is number one for it. And Seth, I think you can go back and forth, and we talked about this ad nauseum in the last live stream. But Brent Venables, like, he spent like 20 minutes, my man, on his like opening statement. I think it was the longest statement he's ever had at any of his pressers, and he was pissed. You know what he reminded me of, Gavin? He reminded me of when I got in trouble with my parents, and it was I'm not angry at you, but I'm disappointed. And it's like, oh, okay. Or they would use my middle name. When you got to the middle name, but you hadn't got to the full name yet, you knew you were in deep shit. It's just like Brent Venables was using people's middle names at this point. That's the vibe I got. It's like, it was beyond just normal anger of we just messed up on it. This was they embarrassed him, and you could tell he finally stepped up as a head coach. And basically said, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to, as we said, this is a results-based game. Y'all jobs on the line at this point. So kudos to Brent for that, though. I think some of it, people say, is this for show? I would say yes to get the fans off his back. And at the same point, I think no. I think if you're that passionate, it's publicly throwing you under the bus to get you embarrassed, to get your rear in gear, essentially. Again, I
And
know there are coaches that are going to be much safer than others, but yeah.
and then again, here's the other thing, and it's like, and for those that are outside looking in, if you don't, here's the thing: if you think Brent's deal is the whole point and everything, boy, you have no, there's a whole lot of issues that are wrong with that, because he is definitely one of the most passionate coaches that you'll ever see, because he basically will light a fire under you, for you to make sure that you can run through a brick wall for him more than anything. I mean, heck,
Yeah,
it's
but
like I mean, if I may or anything, and I think the thing is too is that this was even like before being an OU, and everything. He also did the same thing at Clemson too, to where he had basically had this whole issue, as well with this sort of issue too, and it has done a lot of success and everything in the past for him as well. But the whole thing of it now is that now you're kind of basically taking in the whole responsibility of the whole team. And, Brent's kind of making this as a CEO and just saying, look, I know this is not up to the standards. And, you are making sure that we are going to be taking care of this. And I'm going to be 100%. And it's like, and I'm kind of looking at this though, too. It's like, if they really are not going to be pulling in 100% on the offensive side or anything, I'm fine with like taking names down though too, and leaving them and watching them, having the hurricane watch on them by. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
I think with Brent, something to mention too is he's realizing what it takes to be a head coach, because he was brought in to fix the defense, and that's exactly what he did. But however, because he neglected the offense side, we're now seeing the flip side of that, of now he has to fix the offense, and now he has to manage both sides. Zach Alley will be able to take care of defense, and now it's time to fix the other side of the ball. I think the only last thing topic I had, Gavin, very briefly too, was we were talking about who was the dumbest dumpster fire of the week. Let's also add into the shotgun wedding that's about to probably happen between the Mountain West and the Pac-12 of, oh, we're all going to join here. Nah, we're committed over here, but we may get a better deal over here, but maybe we want to stay over here. Like, Pac-12 is doing everything in their power to try to poach the Mountain West. The Mountain West is doing their best to keep everything together. It really hinges down to like who's getting the better deal, and I think it's UNLV, ironically, in the news again, and Air Force. They're going to be the deciding factor.
Yeah, they are.
Right now, looking at it, you see what's it called? Utah State joined the Pac-12 at this point, and they need one more
Yep.
member to be like taken seriously. But it's also dependent on UNLV, which is funny because the teams that committed to the Pac-12 are also like, if UNLV is not on board, maybe we don't want to be on board at this point as well. And the entire irony is now Oregon State and Washington State are pulling the exact same stunts that Washington, Oregon, USC did. Of they are now the backstabbers at this point and trying to manipulate stuff in the background. As we all said, like every school is going to do it. It's an out for survival. We understand that, but it's what we said of, if y'all were offered the opportunity, y'all would do the same thing. Yeah, y'all did the exact same thing. So
Yep.
it's a wild situation. So, Gavin, let's kind of wrap this show up. Week 5 happened this week. Pending the hurricane at this point, potentially delaying the game or changing the entire outcome of like what the expectations are. Who do you got for Georgia and Alabama? Who are you favoring right now?
Let's see. It's Bama at home, but they're actually an underdog for like the first time at home since 2007, and that's when Saban was the head coach.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really tough. It's like, I mean, you can make a, I mean, this is such a really hard coin flip. But if I had to take if I was a gambling man, I would be siding with Georgia on this. I
I mean, that
really
would be the
would.
safe
They
bet.
are probably going to be the it would be the safe bet, but it's just like I kind of just see this as where to the point to where, yeah, they had a small deal with Kentucky, but here's the thing: they have still been dominant for the most part, and have been fundamentally sound so far all season. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know what else you could do. Now, Alabama's been doing pretty good, it's like showing that they still haven't, missed a beat or anything, especially with Moreau on offense and all that. But, like I said, I think if anything, it's going to come down to like which team, is much more better overall sound. And I think it will be Georgia. Now, the only
Yeah.
thing I will say is that please, please, please just get some Ubers for the Georgia team. I beg of you. I'm so sick and
We've gone beyond that
tired.
point, Gavin.
I know. I am just so sick and tired of all the issues that are going on with these reckless driving issues that are going on with Georgia. It's just like, I don't know
Hey,
why
Gavin.
it's.
Hey, Gavin. Hey, Gavin. Is it driving you barking mad? Ah, ah, ah.
Yeah.
Don't judge me. Anyway, but I mean, it is what it is for it. But I'm not surprised, Gavin, that Georgia would be the pick. That's the safe money pick as well. We also got Louisville and Notre Dame. I think this is Notre Dame to me is out of it at this point, but I think this is an opportunity for Louisville to take that next step to potentially be in the running for the ACC championship
Yeah.
against probably Miami and to be in even a potential at-large team for the college football playoff. They're knocking on that door, but they got to get over that hurdle with Notre Dame. I'd also say the other game, in my opinion, to watch out for will be Oklahoma State versus Kansas State. BYU definitely derailed Kansas State last week. So I think this is a do or die type of who's going to face Utah in the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, and we'll just kind of see, like who's going to be able to bounce back the quickest, honestly, because that both those teams just went. I mean, they were both dead, before the game
Yep.
even started at this point.
Yep.
And what makes it even worse, though, is like look, Utah's always known for having a good defense. There's no doubt about it. But the problem is, it's like you have a quarterback, and I'm not kidding you, a 7th-year quarterback where I don't no idea how he has been eligible this long, and he gets so bad so fast, and then
Yeah.
I don't usually go into the whole issue with OSU, but then all of a sudden, they basically had to replace him like in the middle of the game, and then they basically put Bowman back, saying, "Okay, let's see if we can be able to work this." And it's like, yeah, if you're going to be rotating quarterbacks in and out like that, that's one thing. But like, I mean, look, I know we have room to talk, but like, at least when we replaced Hawkins, at least we were able to get stuff done. Honestly, it was like the problem is like OSU just can never really get out of their own, basically out of their own half for the most part, and that was what was so bad about it.
Yeah. Gavin, let's wrap up.
All right.
What's your final score prediction for the OU Auburn game?
I'm gonna probably go ahead and say 27-3.
Okay, I'm thinking 27-10. I want it. OU will obviously cover the spread because it's so close, but I think Auburn's offense just will not be able to do anything against the defense. And OU will still continue to struggle on offense, but they'll still make it a respectable win on the road at this point and get us our first SEC win.
And I think the biggest, and I will say this point because we've already mentioned this. I think turnovers are going to play the key, and I think it's going to be those points off of turnovers, even if they are field goals in field goal range. I think that will make the biggest difference in the game.
Yeah. So that's all we got tonight, guys. Thanks everybody for joining the live stream. Be sure to comment, rate, subscribe, like, hit the notification bell so you know when the channel updates and or when we upload a video. Additionally, be sure to check out my previous videos and live streams as it helps bump the channels up and helps the video algorithms in the search bar and or after videos. As well as be sure to share it with other people live streams. We like having everybody join in for the chat. We like being able to interact and answer y'all's questions and basically build a community. Our next live stream will either be Sunday after the Auburn game on the 29th or Monday, September 30th. Just depends on what my upload schedule and my availability looks like. Same thing with the other co-hosts. Same thing for next week. We are entering the bye week next week, so we may have just a general community, like kind of like fireside, like World Cafe style live stream where people can join in and interact with us, or we may just take the week off. I haven't decided yet for it. Gotta kind of get to next week at this point, but be on the lookout potentially for a live stream next Wednesday or Thursday. That's all we got, guys. Let's go beat up on Auburn. Boomer Sooner, only one Oklahoma, and we'll see everybody here post Auburn. Later.
Peace out.